We've got the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, raising more questions than answers. My next guest says there are several aspects of the probe that are troubling. Joining me now, former Fed agent Dan Bongino. What do you find troubling, Dan?
Well, gosh, it seems like from the start, based on my experience conducting federal investigations, that this thing was set up to fail. I mean, there's no reasonable way to look at this from people with experience to determine otherwise. I mean, I'll give you one right off the bat here. The seizing of the computers from the start. How do you work a case that involves the electronic transfer of information and just recently find out that there was another computer in the Abedin household, Huma Abedin, that they didn't recover? There seems like to me, that there's some political pressure from the start to have this investigation not find answers, not actually find answers.
Yeah, no grand jury, immunity deals for Cheryl Mills acting as Hillary's lawyers. I mean, there's a number of things that you found problematic,
yeah.
right? And, I think you say, too, that the FBI should not have agreed to forego prosecuting the potential co-conspirators, Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin. I mean, you call them co-conspirators. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first was the computer. Secondly, you just brought this up, these immunity deals. These immunity deals are preposterous. When I was a federal agent, 999 out of 1,000 cases, or whatever it may be, the way you work a potential co-conspirator, Huma or Cheryl, someone who may be involved in this crime, the transfer of information, you don't offer an immunity deal without threat to charge them from the start. Either you charge them, you get them to cooperate, and then when they go in front of a judge at their hearing, they get a 5K letter, which tells the judge they cooperated, be lenient, and the judge can take that into account or not. But you don't offer immunity from the start with no charging document. Or I've never heard of anything like this. It's the equivalent, as I wrote in the piece, of saying, help us pretty please, or we'll ask you again. I mean, it's ridiculous. You would never work a federal case like this, again, unless you didn't want to find the answer. And I'm sure that's the case in this one.
Dan, you make some great points. And also, a lot of law enforcement, FBI officials, and a number of intelligence officials saying the standard of gross negligence, the law reads, you do not have to have intent in there. Nobody ever intends to commit gross negligence in handling classified information. Comey introduced that. That was another problem, right?
Yeah, that was a huge problem. That is not an element of the crime. If you look up 18 U.S.C. 793, which is an applicable statute of this crime, and you look up Section F, there is no mention of intent. It's a gross negligence standard. Here's the best way to explain it to someone not involved in law enforcement. If you're in a baseball dugout swinging a baseball bat, and the parents ask you to stop because there's kids around, they ask you 5 or 6 times, you continue to do it, and God forbid you hit a kid and hurt him, you could potentially be guilty of a crime, even though you had no intention of actually hurting the child. You were just grossly negligent. So that's the best way to describe it to the layman.
We've got another WikiLeaks revelation. Hillary Clinton used variations of, I don't recall, 21 out of 25 times. That's according to the FBI notes of that interview. And this is an answering about her private email server. And we've got now a new WikiLeaks email. Shows a top campaign staffer had questioned her honesty on not remembering a certain issue. Watch this. It's Tuesday. It's September 15, 2015. We've got Clinton aide Neera Tanden writing to campaign chair John Podesta, quote, why does she call herself a moderate? To which Podesta replies, quote, I pushed her on this on Sunday night. She claims she did not remember saying it. Not sure I believe her. Now, what are we learning? What is your sense now about the Clinton campaign from these WikiLeaks emails, Dan?
Listen, it seems like Mrs. Clinton, from my experience, having been a federal agent and a Secret Service agent, spending a lot of time around the Clinton camp, one of the things you need to understand about them is they are very, very insulated. They are insulated to outside criticism. They live in a big echo chamber. It's almost like that Jim Carrey movie, The Truman Show. And, Mrs. Clinton's acting, but she doesn't know, like, she's acting. She thinks everyone around her are playing real parts in life. That's what happens with them. And you can see from these emails that her instincts are terrible, and everybody seems to be afraid to actually tell her instincts are terrible. Neera Tanden actually comes out like the voice of reason in it.
All right, Dan Bongino, I'm so sorry we got to go. Thank you for your service to our country, Dan. You're always terrific to have on. We really appreciate your service.